Hello there everybody, my name is Jeremy Jameson, here today with 5 of the saddest YouTuber Draw My Life videos. Right before getting into the list, it would be absolutely fantastic if we could hit 500 likes on this video. Also, if you have not already, click that subscribe button and also click the little bell to be notified every time we upload a new video. We're going to start off with Markiplier. In the early years of his life, he was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. However, his family later moved to the mainland in the US for work. For a while, Mark's family consisted of himself, his brother, his mother, and his father. His brother and him bonded strongly over video games on the Super Nintendo. They would often go away to hide to play video games as children, as their parents frequently fought. Eventually, they got divorced, to which Mark and his brother went to live with their father. There were some fairly drastic life changes for them due to not having as much money as before. Through this time, Mark's love for video games and computers continued to grow. Mark's father would come to find a perfect partner for him that both him and his sons loved. From this point on, Mark started to once again live a good and balanced life, as he was just glad to see his father happy again. Well, once Mark was in post-secondary school, his father got cancer. Unfortunately, it was not treatable. Mark was home the last day of his father's life. His stepmother called Mark in, to which he was given the opportunity to hold his father's hand as he passed away. Skipping ahead in time a bit, while Mark was in school for engineering, he lived with his girlfriend at the time. It ended up becoming a major source of stress for Mark, so much so that he developed a tumor, as well as his appendix was about to explode. So after this pain that had come about became just too strong for him, he went to the hospital, to which he found out about the condition he was in. He would then have to have immediate surgery and then recovered in the hospital for the following 2 weeks. Blessedly, his stepmother was still there for him, and he had reconciled with his mother, who was also supporting him. A little while after getting out of the hospital, Mark purchased a camera with the intention of doing sketch comedy. He then decided to fully embrace his love of gaming and start creating the YouTube content we know him for today. I think we all know where his story ends up in the modern times, with Markiplier being one of the largest YouTube creators at over 18 million subscribers. Up next is NigaHiga, aka Ryan Higa. He was born in Hilo, Hawaii. Growing up, he always felt as though he was in his older brother's shadow. His family was heavily invested in judo, in which his brother would always place #1 in tournaments, while Ryan was lucky to place 3rd. In elementary school, Ryan doesn't recall much, as nothing too bad happened to him. Once he was preparing for middle school, he transferred to a charter school away from his friends. At this new school, Ryan was placed a year ahead of where he should have been. At first, he thought the new kids would think he was cool for skipping a grade, but this unfortunately was not the case. Throughout middle school, he would be severely bullied, just due to him being younger than everyone else in his class. He eventually decided that a tactic to avoid the constant ridicule would be to become the funny guy, as the only reason they were picking on him to begin with was to laugh. So Ryan developed his comedy skills. This ended up working for him for the most part as he got older. He would begin to also create comedy videos. He would show his family them. One major setback to Ryan's self-esteem was when he asked a girl out that he had a crush on since elementary school in the 8th grade. She rejected him. It wouldn't be until Ryan started wrestling and becoming skilled in that where he would finally build up confidence. Once he graduated high school, Ryan moved away from Hawaii to study medicine in college. He absolutely hated it. It just so happened the videos he had started doing and uploading, they started to take off on YouTube, which brought him to be one of the largest creators at over 20 million subscribers today. Shane Dawson, in his early years, had his mother, father, and brother. The father was a very abusive man, taking out his anger on the mother, Shane, and his brother, both physically as well as verbally, making Shane feel worthless and believing a lot of the lies up until, well, only a few years ago when Shane was in his early 20s. Because of the situation growing up, Shane turned to food to help aid the stress. When Shane was 9 years old, his mother moved him as well as his brother away from their father. As Shane had low self-esteem, he was not able to make friends, so he would hang out with his grandmother often. It would not be until high school that Shane finally did find a group of friends. For class projects, they would make some offensive but hilarious videos that were widely praised by teachers and students. For the first time, Shane started to feel good about himself. But by high school, Shane had become incredibly overweight, so in order to stop this, he decided to turn himself around and get into shape while pursuing entertainment as a career. As his YouTube career started to take off, his grandmother, whom he had been very close with, passed away. Shane almost quit YouTube due to how dark of a place he was in following her death, but persevered for all the fans who could relate to Shane with his dark humor and his upbringing. Today, Shane is at 10 million subscribers on one of his channels and 8 million on the other, and still growing rapidly after being around on YouTube for just about a decade. Up next is Boogie2988. He is the youngest of 3 children, born to a father who worked in coal mines and a mother who was a teacher. Boogie, aka Steven, was born much later than his older brother and sister, so for a lot of growing up, it was just him and his mother, as his father was always busy with work, and when he was around, he was constantly drunk. Due to the situation in large, his mother was constantly sad, so she would turn to Boogie to take out the anger from within her by beating him. This caused him to start to eat more to cope with the abuse. Because of this, his eating disorder developed, causing him to become overweight. Steven's father would eventually get what is essentially a stroke caused by his alcoholism. This left him in a state where he was unable to communicate due to being deaf from the career in mining, plus a stutter, and really unable to do anything except stare at a wall. In post-secondary, Boogie had a relationship with a girl that he at one point thought he would marry. That did not work out though, and he ended up failing college. His brother then invited him out to living in Arkansas, where for the first time he started to make some good friends whom loved gaming. Boogie would travel over the US for Magic the Gathering tournaments, however his overeating continued throughout this time. And the main reason he even came out here to begin with was to learn how to code with these people, so this became his main source of income. His father during this time would die from cancer, and eventually his mother would break one of her legs, causing her to not be able to work anymore. And Steven was diagnosed with lymphedema in his leg, making it very difficult to walk. Because of all of this misfortune around him, he ended up spending nearly 7 years never leaving his home, just living off of coding, which was unfortunately slowed down for him as coding as a career had become a lot more popular with the growth of the internet. It would be his roommate that helped him stay alive and not go homeless during this time. Steven later started creating YouTube content in which he did comedy videos based around his weight. YouTuber Ray William Johnson, who was the most subscribed on the platform for a while, showcased one of Steven's videos. This is what kickstarted the channel for Steven. Shortly after this newfound success, his mother passed away due to illness. This is what made Steven the saddest he had ever been, so much so that he was seriously contemplating suicide, but because of his friend Adam and his YouTube audience, he didn't kill himself. A fan of his got in contact with Steven, who had a messed up life herself. Well, they ended up talking and then dating, although they lived far apart at first. Today they are happily married, and she alongside YouTube has brought Boogie to the best place in his life he has ever been, and currently has more than 4 million subscribers and is still continuing to grow at a fast rate. For the final person, Philip Defranco. He grew up in New York City with his mother and father. Around the age of 10 or 11, they would get divorced. Him and his mother then moved to Asheville, North Carolina, where his grandfather lived. Well, his grandfather would soon pass. At this point, there's no real reason to be in North Carolina, but they ended up staying there. Phil's mother had a series of boyfriends, which there were some abusers. Eventually came along a guy that seemed very nice to Phil, as he was kind to his mother and just played with Phil quite a lot, taking Phil on motorcycle rides and hanging out with him at this bar he owned. Everything seemed good until the mother got cancer, but the boyfriend was able to financially support them. What both Philip and his mother had failed to overlook, though, is that the boyfriend made the majority of his money being a drug dealer. One night, Phil and his mother woke up to a carbon monoxide alarm going off in their home. They saw the boyfriend wearing a gas mask, pulling the exhaust from his vehicle into their home, attempting to kill them. Luckily, they did escape alive. Phil then went back to live with his father. After high school, Phil moved in with his girlfriend at the time, but they were broke, which strained the relationship, causing it to fail. Philip then later started talking to this new girl online, and they had such a connection that he ended up moving out to live with this new person, even getting an apartment there beforehand, but when he arrived, he found out he had been catfished. So Phil was left more broke than ever. He had to move in with his father down in Florida. In order to raise enough gas money, Phil uploaded a YouTube video in which he received $500 to make it down to live with his father on the condition that he would return to college. Well, what Phil ended up actually doing while living with his father was working during the day as a waiter, pretending to go to college, then at night making YouTube videos. His father eventually found out that he had been lying to him, so Phil was kicked out. But luckily, his now wife started talking with Phil, so he moved in with her. Today, Philip Defranco is a huge news channel at over 5 million subscribers. Well, thank you so much for watching, everyone. My name is Jeremy Jameson. Have yourself a fantastic day, and goodbye.